I really want to get into cooking. What dish did you first start with and eventually excel at making? Story 1. When I was growing up, my mom and stepdad required each of us to know how to cook 3 dishes to help out in the evening. One had to be made from scratch and 2 could be from a box. My scratch recipe was what my family calls chicken turnovers. You can make the dough by hand if you want, but the easy way is to use Pillsbury crescent rolls. You stitch together 2 crescent rolls to create a rectangular patch of dough. You fill the rectangle with a large spoonful of a mixture of shredded chicken, cream cheese, and seasonings. You can add some frozen or partially cooked vegetables too if you want. Then you fold the dough over to create a neat little pouch, making sure all edges are sealed. Then you bake them until golden brown. They are delicious, and I mastered them around 10 years old. If you want to get into cooking, I would suggest starting with simple dishes you really enjoy. Learn how to make those and expand from there. The thing about cooking is that if you learn certain basic techniques, you can apply them to many kinds of dishes easily. To learn some of those techniques, I recommend watching episodes of Alton Brown's Good Eats from Food Network or Basics with Babish on YouTube. Story 2. Chicken casserole. It has 4 ingredients and you can use canned chicken. It is super easy, and I still make it sometimes. Story 3. Not a specific recipe, but a technique. Pan sauces. Skillet sautéing a protein and using stock, wine, cream, or other liquids to deglaze and make a sauce. Think chicken piccata, smothered pork chops, steak with brandy cream, and similar dishes. It was not about mastering recipes, but learning techniques that applied across several recipes that helped me. Story 4. English muffin pizza changed my life. My English muffin pizza was great, and it became even better. I make a great English muffin pizza. That was 60 years ago. How long have English muffins existed? I don't know. My dad liked English muffins, so we had them. We were poor, but he wanted that. We should have made our own English muffins. Story 5. Macaroni and cheese at the age of 4. I am almost 40 now. My dishes continue to be a culinary delight. Story 6. One-pan dinner. Beef mince, vegetables, sauce, and pasta spirals all in a big pan. Topped with lots of Worcestershire sauce. Still a favorite comfort food for me. Story 7. Wait a minute. You mean there are men who do not cook? That is a very basic life skill regardless of your gender. Story 8. My husband's first master dish was macaroni and cheese, but not the boxed kind. He spent months perfecting his own cheese sauce recipe. Now his signature dish has 4 different cheeses and a crispy panko topping that makes me weak in the knees. Story 9. When I was a child, my parents taught me how to make scrambled eggs. I ate them so often that I genuinely became tired of eating eggs. Story 10. The first thing I ever cooked was fries. Nothing too fancy, but it got me started. After that, I moved on to fried chicken wings, and that really got me hooked. From there, I started experimenting with pasta and even made my own sauce. If you're trying to impress someone, homemade sauce is the way to go. But honestly, store-bought is almost as good and takes a lot less time and money if you're just cooking for yourself. Then I tried making pizza from scratch, which was fun, and later worked on mastering steaks, at least until I stopped eating mammals. Now I stick to things like turkey meat tacos and shrimp fried rice. Those are my go-to dishes now, and they're all pretty beginner-friendly once you get the hang of them. I cook other stuff too, but I keep coming back to the simple things. They taste the best, and they're easy to get right without overcomplicating things. Also, lemon pepper chicken. I used to deep fry it. Now I air fry it. And today I smoked some wings. 5 stars for me. Story 11. Spaghetti. I have mastered it from a jar of ragu to fresh from my garden, aside from the protein. My mom traveled for work every other week, and my dad could not cook. So my sister and I had to learn how to cook from what our mom taught us. Spaghetti was a go-to. Since then, I have perfected it. Story 12. Mastered my grandfather's biscuits and gravy. I learned a few other dishes first, but that was the one I focused on perfecting. Story 13. Tuna pasta bake. My aunt taught me how to make it when I was 12, and it was all I cooked for about 3 years. Story 14. Crock-pot and instant pot chili. Comes out amazing every time, and it is my own recipe. No, you are not getting it. It wins chili cook-offs. Story 15. Probably roasted chicken or sauces. Being able to thicken reductions into sauces is a defining skill. Softening reductions with butter into a smooth, unbroken sauce is a challenging technique. Story 16. Stir fry. I had a very limited budget, a hot plate, and a wok. My friend from Taiwan taught me the basics. You can make a good meal with a couple of ingredients and rice or noodles. Story 17. Chicken Alfredo with sautéed spinach was the first thing I ever cooked to impress a girl who was coming over. Scrambled eggs were the first thing my mom taught me how to cook. Story 18. Steak. Get a cast iron pan and learn how it works with your stovetop by observing how thick the steak is. Also, take care of the pan. It will take a few months, but you will get it perfect with trial and error. You can make instant potatoes, ready rice, or an easy couscous and rice pilaf as a side. Story 19. The first dish I mastered is not interesting. Macaroni and cheese. A better question is what my favorite dish that I have mastered is. I make a killer chicken Alfredo. Story 20. Understanding pasta is such a flex, and nothing is sexier, I promise. I'm not talking about making fresh pasta, though it is fun and easier than it looks. I'm talking about how to properly cook dry pasta and how to properly sauce it. How to make a sauce out of butter, pasta water, and grated Parmesan. How to take garlic, olive oil, and cherry tomatoes and make something greater than the sum of its parts. From there, the world is your oyster. Make a meaty ragu that takes hours in the oven. Make it springy with peas and asparagus from the farmer's market. Make it a team project and have your guests help you with rolling the meatballs. Another thing I love about pasta is it doesn't require knife skills, but it does require some finesse. How you move the pasta itself, whether you use tongs or a rubber spatula to stir it, whether it is a cream sauce, a wine sauce, a tomato sauce, or no sauce, technique makes a difference. Plus, it is fun, and if you kind of mess it up, it is still going to be tasty and satisfying. Story 21. I like scrambled eggs, as do many people. I have tried many styles and now make them using the bain-marie method, adding heavy cream. I still usually serve them on toast. Story 22. At 5 years old, I taught myself how to prepare food. I had half-day kindergarten and my parents' work days. I first learned to make corned beef hash and eggs, then moved on to macaroni and cheese. Before the end of the year, I was making spaghetti from scratch using canned tomato sauce. I could cook grilled burgers, hot dogs, and steaks. Before the end of my second grade year, I could make pizza from scratch, including homemade crust. Story 23. Weeknight dinner pasta sauce. Not even super gourmet. High-quality crushed tomatoes. Definitely San Marzano. Denominazione di origine protetta optional. Garlic cloves, crushed with the side of a knife to release the allicin. Olive oil to absorb garlic umami. Fresh basil from the Trader Joe's plant that loves its spot by the window. Definitely repot with fresh soil. Bonus points for rolling leaves together and cutting into strips. Salt from the Costco Mega Pack. Optionally tomato paste and oregano, but that can is too small and I prefer lots of basil. For pasta, it's open season, though I prefer bucatini, which is basically spaghetti with a tiny hole down the middle, making it better for sauce. Story 24. I first got into cooking as an excuse to drink wine that paired with it. The first mastery meal was pork chops smothered in applesauce paired with California Chardonnay. I ate it sitting on the floor of a 400-square-foot studio apartment watching something on the 15-inch tube television I had at the time. It had a built-in video cassette recorder player, so I might have been watching a movie. Yes, the same television I had in college. Story 25. The first dish I mastered was steak. When I discovered sous vide cooking and Montreal seasoning, my steak game peaked. Story 26. Cajun fettuccine. I followed an Emeril Lagasse recipe a long time ago. I had cooked before, but this was the first recipe that made me feel like a chef. Story 27. Not counting something like eggs or packaged food, probably chili or beef stew. Cottage pie came later but was also new to my family. Story 28. Chicken tacos. Definitely helped. I found the simplest recipe ever. Toss a few ingredients into a slow cooker and 5 hours later, it is time to eat with minimal cleanup. Perfect for someone like me. Story 29. Stir fry. Well, pasta with meat and vegetables. Apparently, what I make is very different from what my friends think of as stir fry. Story 30. Baked spaghetti. Kind of gourmet, looks great on a plate, and tastes fantastic. Always a good go-to dish. Story 31. Probably the first thing I mastered was biscuits and gravy after my grandfather, a genuinely bad cook, taught me how to make a roux. He knew how to make a roux and subsequently gravy, and he also had a barbecue sauce recipe that used a roux. He was an army cook during the Korean War and lived up to that stereotype, no salt, no flavor, generally speaking. He was good on the grill though, once I got him to stop boiling ribs before grilling them. Story 32. I think if you really want to get into cooking, do not try to master a dish. Master a technique one at a time. If you cook long enough, you will discover that you can make each dish better every time, as long as you know the fundamentals and basics. Story 33. Sweet and sour chicken. Fry some diced chicken, add a jar of simmer sauce, a packet of frozen vegetables, and serve it on top of a pack of ramen noodles. Simple. Once you master that, you can cook dozens of different meals by changing the meat, the sauce, and the vegetables. You can add mushrooms, onions, pineapple, raisins, and more. Story 34. I made a mean fried rice from the Common Sense cookbook that we all had in Year 7 home science class. Story 35. Spaghetti bolognese, the Australian version. Broadened that to lasagna. My first genuinely impressive dish. Cooked it for a pretty girl on our first dinner date. We have been married for 30 years now. Story 36. An omelette. We stayed at a hotel with an omelette station, and I was obsessed with learning how to make it. Story 37. Curry. I don't claim to have mastered a dish, but I work as hard to make my food as good as, if not better than, your standard sit-down restaurant. With curry, I have the timing down pat from how often I have made it, ensuring the chicken and vegetables have the desired tenderness and finish cooking at the same time as the rice cooker. Story 38. The perfect sunny side-up eggs. Runny yolk with the whites completely cooked and a mild crust ring around the outside without burning. Story 39. I got decent at making spaghetti because I could basically make a week's worth for $30. As far as making it so good that I could compete with others and beat them, I make one excellent Brunswick stew. I smoke all the meats and rub them with a combination of pepper blends, Cajun seasonings, jerk seasonings, and salts. The full process takes around 9 to 12 hours. Story 40. My dad's chili. He walked me through every step. It's amazing. There's a reason we make 22 quarts, 21 liters at a time. We freeze several quarts or liters, and the rest is gone in a few days. The frozen ones are also gone in a couple of weeks. Story 41. Instant noodles. To achieve good instant noodle texture, put a sufficient amount of water in the pot. Do not add any seasoning or sauces to the water. Ensure the water is boiling on the stove before adding the noodles. If the package indicates 3 minutes cooking time, cook for 5 minutes. Drain thoroughly using a strainer. Do not rinse with cold or iced water. When boiling food, use a good amount of water and add the ingredients only after the water is boiling. This makes timing easier and allows for better control over how well the ingredients are cooked. Story 42. If you are asking about a meal that you have to make from scratch with no quick mix ingredients, I would say probably pumpkin soup. It is relatively easy to make, and you do not need a lot of kitchen appliances or utensils, mainly a large pot, wooden spoon, and a stick blender if you want it really smooth. The best part about cooking pumpkin soup is that you can add your own twist to almost every recipe you find online. For example, I brown bacon, celery, and onion before doing anything else. Then, right before blending, I add a handful of cumin seeds, which adds a lot of flavor. It does not take long to prepare and is a great dish to impress someone with. Story 43. My first fancy dish I made was pomme de chasse with tenderloin I had marinated for 3 days, along with a sauce made with red wine. It was also the first dish I made for my girlfriend at the time, and I wanted to show off. Story 44. I would not say I have mastered it, but for me it is chili con carne. I have made it so many times I do not use a recipe, I just go by memory. Since beef prices rose dramatically in my country since the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, I have switched to a vegetarian version. Story 45. Omelets. I picked up a library book about omelets in second grade and had my dad teach me how to make them. They are still my go-to. Story 46. Cooked rice was the first dish I learned. Not in a rice cooker but in a saucepan. I learned how to estimate the amount of water needed to get fluffy rice every time. You can do so much with it too, like boil it in chicken stock, add spices or herbs, or even cook it in the oven. There are endless combinations for such a simple dish. Story 47. Chocolate chip cookies when I was 10. My mother was tired of making them. I wanted some and mine were better. It is kind of a trap. There are only a few things I will eat that I did not prepare myself now, 44 years later. Story 48. Kraft dinner, also known as macaroni and cheese, is something I ate way too much of in my younger days. I became very good at making it. It's funny because it is considered a processed and artificial food. Real macaroni and cheese is quite different, with a lot of actual cheese melted into a sauce and poured over al dente noodles before being baked, sometimes with breadcrumbs on top. Honestly, I have never made it from scratch. Now, I rarely if ever eat any pasta. Story 49. Chicken risotto. My ex said it was the best thing she had ever eaten, and she had an expression on her face that read, "I have seen God," much like most people who eat it. She also said she had never had sex with anyone the way we had sex when I called her up, not aware that she had a new boyfriend. I still think she mixed up her memory of having sex with me with eating my risotto. Story 50. I would not say I mastered it, but I made chicken noodle soup for a woman, and we had sex, which was unexpected from my point of view. Story 51. Panini with bologna, olives, salami, Swiss cheese, mustard, lettuce, and tomato, grilled in a little olive oil. I was a god at 8 years old. Story 52. I've been doing it for so long I can't even remember what it was. One thing you will want to do is try to find some easy recipes to start with. I remember my first cookbook was the Better Homes and Gardens New Cookbook. My mom had this book, all of my aunts had this book, and as far as I understand it, it is the best-selling cookbook of all time. I think I made maybe 2 things from it. The homemade barbecue sauce for the country ribs is pretty good, but I have since made better. The problem with a cookbook like this is it assumes you will spend your day cooking. If I were to make a suggestion, I would say to look up a magazine called Cooking Light. I subscribed to this over the years, and it is the one thing I point to as the catalyst for my cooking skills. Cooking Light and healthy-focused recipes almost always use extremely simple ingredients that are easy to find. Many times the dishes, while flavorful and good for you, are usually easy to prepare. Also, Google is very useful. Just pick something and search for it to find the recipe that looks best to you. I looked up healthy meatloaf recipes because I love meatloaf but always feel like it is not very good for me, and found a recipe that is super easy to make, with ingredients that can be found in any grocery store, and it tastes fantastic. I just made it this past Monday. The key is to just get out there and try. Do not get too complicated. Keep it simple. My method is to find a recipe that sounds interesting, follow it, and if I like it, make it a few times. Around the 3rd or 4th time, I may experiment a little and change a few things. Following recipes at the beginning sets you up to create your own. Story 53. Hamburgers. My dad started me off with basic tasks when I was a toddler, like stirring pancake batter. The first thing I ever learned to cook well on my own was a basic hamburger when I was probably 5 or 6. Once I stopped overcooking them, I moved on to steaks. Story 54. Cowboy food. I would mix pork and beans with ground beef, and my children loved it. My ex-wife asked me what cowboy food was. I said I couldn't tell her because it was a secret. Laugh out loud. Story 55. The weekend fry-up. Eggs over easy, bacon, fried potatoes, and toast. Started around 7 years old. Somehow, I still haven't figured out how to get those canned potatoes as crispy as Mom always does after 40 years of trying. Story 56. After 10 years of marriage, I learned some really good recipes my ex-wife and I made. A struggle meal for us was basic chicken and rice. Chop the chicken into cubes, cook it, and season it however you like. Top with shredded cheese, Texas enchiladas, baked potato soup, and my personal favorite, homemade chicken pot pie. Ever since I was a kid, my parents bought the pre-made frozen one, and I thought it was the most terrible thing ever, until I learned how to make it myself. Serve it with seasoned rice and steamed broccoli. Burgers, grilled barbecue chicken with grilled corn on the cob, steaks, and baked potatoes. The best thing you can do is just try a recipe, experiment, and build from there. Story 57. Breaded chicken cutlets. It is not too difficult and was probably the first time I had my own food and realized I could make it better than the supermarket does. Story 58. Started with eggs at 4. Dad put himself through college cooking, and my mother was not a nurturer. I was making tacos by 6, and then I learned to read. The sky was the limit after that. Story 59. In college, I moved into a suite that had a kitchenette. I really enjoyed making chicken burritos. At the time, Taco Bell was running many advertisements about grilled burritos as if it were a new idea. I spent a weekend making my own chicken grilled burritos in a simple style: flour tortilla, canned chicken, and plenty of yellow cheese. I was very proud of myself. The crispy fried tortilla outside and the spicy, cheesy insides were cooked nicely. It was not scrambled eggs, but it was enjoyable. Story 60. Chili, I guess. Experimentation is fun. Find a basic version of a dish you like, then each time you make it, try changing it a little bit. Each time you can decide if it is an improvement or not and carry on. There is no need to rush it, it can play out over years. Bread is a fun one because it is cheap, scales up and down well, and fresh bread is amazing. It involves a fair amount of waiting, so you can do tasks like intersperse steps between episodes of a show you are binge watching. Story 61. My grandmother's recipe. She never knew how she made it. She just did it. So I watched her while she prepared some dishes, writing everything down. One day I said I could make something to eat. I made the dish I wrote down, except I made the bacon crunchier. She said she liked it better than her own. I was a little bewildered. Story 62. Grilled cheese sandwich. My grandmother lived with us for a very long time, and I would always make her a grilled cheese sandwich and soup. It's a long story, but I was not with her when she passed. There was a span of about 10 months between the last time I saw her and her passing. However, I heard that despite the intense dementia taking over, she repeatedly asked for the man to come make her a grilled cheese sandwich. I am actually tearing up just typing this. After she passed, I realized how important food can be in all walks of life, and I started cooking on a much broader spectrum. Story 63. When I was in my 20s, an old girlfriend's mother used to make this potato, meat, and raisin soup that was very tasty. Years later, I searched for it online and found out it was a Filipino dish called giniling. I started making it for my family, and they love it. It actually became a staple for Thanksgiving in our house. Story 64. Eggs were my first ingredient, and the first dish I learned to make was scrambled eggs, followed by an omelet. Story 65. Weirdly, taco salad was a neighborhood hit. It was a wait, maybe I can do this moment. Then I tried cheeseburgers. It is a work in progress. Story 66. The common starting point among myself and those around me as we were growing up was the full English breakfast or the fry-up. It was usually enjoyed as the Sunday or Saturday morning breakfast after nights out. Very easy to cook, but required some awareness and timing between your toast, baked beans, sausages, bacon, and properly scrambled eggs. Story 67. Just chiming in that men who take the time to learn how to cook are the biggest turn-on for women. Not that we as women do not want to cook, but we genuinely enjoy seeing what you can make in the kitchen. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.